So we are going to talk to Justin Cohen, who's the news editor at the Jewish News. He's been going through the papers. He's going to tell us what's caught his eye. But first of all, let's take a look and remind you what's on the front pages this morning. The Sunday Telegraph. Now, you won't be surprised to know that many of the front pages are taking a look at Ian Duncan Smith's resignation, the letter, and now the impact of that. And the Sunday Telegraph has taken the view to look forward, to see how this is going to affect George Osborne, widely expected to make a bid for the leadership of the Conservative Party in the future when Prime Minister David Cameron steps down. And the Telegraph is saying that Michael Gove has rallied to his side in a bid to stop the benefits row engulfing the party.
The front page of The Observer also has the EU story, the Ian Duncan Smith story, the Cuts story, depending on which particular take you believe. On the right-hand side, a thaw in Havana, Cuba and America, and 57 years of Cold War standoff. President Obama is heading to Cuba today.
The Mail on Sunday is taking a look at how David Cameron reacted to the resignation of Ian Duncan Smith, saying that he has described it as dishonourable, the Mail on Sunday has been told. He's said to have exploded with rage when Mr Duncan Smith rejected repeated pleas not to walk out of the government.
Front page of the Sunday Times, Ian Duncan Smith attacks shreds unfit Osborne's dream of number 10 is their headline. Those are his leadership hopes, apparently. And the story on the left-hand side is a world first for a girl who had an ovary frozen at the age of 8. She's now going to become the first woman in the world to have a baby.
Well, to have a baby after having frozen
So
ovaries.
the ovary has been put back in. It's been re-implanted inside her, and she's now going to have a baby.
Amazing how one thing can slip out.
Did I not make that quite clear? Because my mind was moving on to that photograph on the front of the Independent.
The lights are out, and there's a double meaning to this. This is the last print edition of the Independent on Sunday. It's highlighting the three stories it's taking a look at, highlighting Robert Fisk, one of its renowned writers, saying he's met his match, the woman who defied the doubters to get the scoop of the century. Also saying it has an exclusive interview with David Cameron. We've been talking about that as he shares his fear about apathetic voters and what that would mean to the EU referendum outcome. And also it's marking Earth Hour, which is the picture we're seeing. This is Shanghai going dark yesterday, but also saying there are reasons for optimism when it comes to climate change.
And the Independent, I have to say, I said this earlier, their photographs have always been magnificent. And I think more than anything, that's what people might miss when the Independent goes online. Although I'm sure they'll still have fantastic photos online.
Justin Cohen is with us. You know, something else that was on the front pages, that many of the pictures, slamtastic. Six Nations.
Did you watch it?
I did.
Yep.
I did watch it. I think that this is about England's first Grand Slam in the world in rugby for 13 years in the Six Nations. Also yesterday we saw Leicester City go 8 points clear in the Premiership. And I think these really show how being a sports fan is such a roller coaster. Both of these teams were down in the dumps just a few months ago. The England rugby team dumped out of its own World Cup, and Leicester City at the bottom of the Premiership. Now they've turned it around, and it's quite a story for both of them.
And I suppose when it comes to sporting events, it doesn't matter if you're a football fan or a rugby fan. You get caught up in the drama of this, these David and Goliath battles that really inflame our excitement about sport.
I think it's going to be hard for people to grasp the fact that Leicester could next season be the lion in that equation.
Are you a Leicester fan? We should declare any.
Not.
You're not.
I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Tell us about this story, which is inside The Observer. It's a piece written by Nick Cohen. Why I'm becoming a Jew and you should too. Brackets, other religions are available.
Indeed. This is a real tour de force from Nick Cohen. I think he's discussing the rise in anti-Semitism, particularly what he describes as the polite anti-Semitism on the left. It follows another week of controversy involving the Labour Party, the suspension of former parliamentary candidate Vicky Kirby, who spoke about Jews having big noses and Hitler being a Zionist god. And he says in this piece that the party's in danger of being tainted by those it attracts in the same way as UKIP is. And I think it's now about time that the Labour Party take decisive action. They need to start stating in advance that they will expel anyone that shows any sign of anti-Semitism. But Nick Cohen also refers in this piece to something, really a more fundamental problem here. and that's that unless people on the left and elsewhere recognise that when you're campaigning for the Palestinian cause, which no one has an issue with, if that goes into anti-Semitism, that's just as much of a problem as someone just spouting this kind of stuff as Vicky Kirby. And it really doesn't send out the right message that people like Jeremy Corbyn have in the past shared platforms with people who have expressed anti-Semitic sentiment and have described Hamas, for example, a terrorist group with genocidal anti-Semitism as part of its charter, as being a friend. It doesn't reinforce in any way his claim, and I believe it entirely that he wants to have a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism.
And the other thing that this brings up, I suppose, as well, is he starts this with, it took me 40 years to become a Jew. When I was a child, I wasn't, and not only because I never went to a synagogue. It's almost how people, just to move it on away from the politicalisation of religion, about how people are viewing religion now and how open they are about religion now in views, in times where it almost seems a negative.
Yeah, Nick actually points out later in the piece that he hasn't really become a Jew. He's not Jewish despite his surname, but I think he's encouraging people to take on the mantle, to feel what it's like sometimes in these polite middle-class circles to feel an element of racism. And he's saying that, I think with a certain amount of tongue-in-cheek, that people should tell their friends that they've converted to Judaism, or that they're reconnecting with their roots. But he doesn't actually. He's not actually Jewish, and he's just.
That's quite an important point, actually, isn't it? Because I haven't read the article, obviously, but you just look at it and immediately presume that that's his.
Especially with that surname, which he shares.
There is going to be a tribute to Princess Diana, to mark 20 years, the 20th anniversary of her death. And you've picked this piece up, William and Harry, Princes William and Harry, to honour their mother. Yeah,
it's incredible that we're now nearly 20 years on from that crash. I remember waking up that Sunday morning to the news, and we're now 20 years on. There are a number of memorials already within London, and Prince William and Harry have backed plans by the historic royal palaces to have a special garden at Kensington Palace. There'll also be an exhibition there. And I think there's also this weekend been a very moving interview from Prince Harry about his mother, where he says, he hopes she'd be proud of him. And I think with the stories that are coming out today of his support for the Nepalese in the wake of the earthquake there, I think, she definitely would be.
It's one of it's the more modern day JFK, isn't it? People of a certain generation always remember where they were when JFK was, and similarly with Princess Diana.
Justin, that's all we have time for. Many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.